Whenever you're ready, sir.
Okay. It's 6:30, so let's go ahead and call the February 12th Resource Conservation Commission meeting to an order. Call to order. The first thing, 1A, is appointment timekeeper, Andrew Slugger. Andrew, looks like Andrew is just joining us. Kim won't be joining us, and Jim won't be joining us. They both sent emails saying that they had other priorities. Are you there, Andrew?
Yeah, I'm here.
Okay, great. Thank you. Well, have you been appointed timekeeper?
All right, perfect. I can do that at 6:32.
Yep. All right, item 2 on the agenda, public appearance for non-agenda items. Is anybody in the conference room? Council chambers?
No, sir, there is not.
Okay. Let's move on to item 3, approval of the draft minutes from January 8th, 2024. Is there a motion to approve these minutes?
So moved.
I'll second.
Okay, second. Discussion?
We spent quite a bit of time talking about how RCC wanted to spend the $2.5 million sustainability budget for the police department. And I think the minutes should reflect the conclusion or the recommendation that we came up with.
So I'll just, unfortunately, we didn't get this into the agenda for this month, although it's a pretty packed agenda. So I guess that's just as well. We'll have to put it in March. I can send a document out to the RCC, but council recently passed a new guide for staff, a new guide regarding committees and commissions, but specifically about staff involvement with the committees. And one of the points in there is that all staff have been instructed to really pare down minutes to only official actions. So we're talking about motions, seconds, results of votes, significant items of consequence, things like reporting the general frame of a discussion. We're directed to not include that anymore.
Then I make a motion that the minutes include our recommendations for the new police station.
So, just to give more context, Diane. So that recommendation was communicated to the council at the next meeting when we discussed the police station, and so that is part of the design package that's being considered. And they basically call it like the sustainability features as recommended by RCC. Just so you know, that's
yeah. Just in terms of minutes, the direct interpretation I've been given is not to add any content anymore. It's really just the official actions. So that's going to be reflected going forward. We can talk about the whole guide next month and go through that. But I'm following the instructions that are given to me by council and the mayor.
Well, how come the commissioners haven't received those guidances then? Whole meetings.
Gabrielle, would you like to weigh in?
I'm sorry. Can you repeat that?
Yeah, why aren't the commissioners given copies of that guidance? We're the ones actually holding meetings, so we should know.
It was supposed to be referred out in the packets, but I guess it was probably mistaken. I can send you all the TTC packet that included these.
Yeah, and again, I said, I can send out that new guidance. There are several things in it. Yep, understood, and that will be sent out.
Getting that information after the fact doesn't do a lot of good. Anybody that reads these minutes has no idea. I mean, we spent a lot of time discussing that, and they have no idea what we decided.
What we have been advised is that, similar to the thrust of previous conversations on this, is that members are certainly encouraged to take detailed notes of things, and all of the meetings are available on YouTube after the fact.
The reality is nobody has time to go back and watch meetings. I understand where, that this has been done, but I certainly don't have time to go watch a full meeting. And now there's nothing that we can get out of the minutes to find out what might have been talked about at the last meeting. So unless you can find some time to go through the YouTube meeting, you're just going to be falling behind or relying on another member to take time to fill you in. So I guess in terms of going forward, is the expectation that we should be going back to where we were in 2007, 2008, 2009, kind of in that era where one of our commissioners is taking the minutes and then, of what actually was talked about and what our action items are so that we can get the things done between meetings. And then we circulate out that secondary set of minutes. I guess I'm just kind of trying to understand how we're going to function as a commission.
Yeah, but would those minutes be things that you could vote on?
I don't know.
I'm trying to think of like an analog that I have in other commissions, because in for TTC, that's the only other commission I'm on that people actually, like, I would say, do consistent work outside of commissions on, sort of advocacy. And those conversations aren't reflected in the minutes like they were used to be in the RCC minutes. And we don't circulate minutes on the side, but I guess it's just sort of ongoing conversations in the meetings that. So I don't know. I mean, if you guys wanted to do like side minutes for posterity,
I mean, is that
I'm not opposed to it, but I don't. It wouldn't be an official. It wouldn't be official thing.
Yeah,
Something
I think that would be, again, taking detailed notes is certainly encouraged. If somebody wants to take notes for the group and share them out, that's welcomed. But this is the directive we're given with minutes is to copy what council is doing, which is official record.
I would also say
Well,
that
then-
if we
Then
were
I
to
think I think we just need to make more sense. I mean, had I known this at the last meeting when we finished that conversation, I would have made a motion that the minutes include what we decided on. We spent so much time on that, and nothing shows in the minutes.
I might suggest that maybe we should have one of the deputy administrator or someone come to the next meeting to talk about this, Phil, to kind of talk about. I don't know who would be.
Yep.
Maybe they
Ben,
can
we'll
have
make sure that gets into the next meeting.
Yeah, and then the other thing I'd say is that if there is notes being sent out to the commission, it's really important that a discussion doesn't happen on email, because that would
Thanks.
violate open records law. So it would just be if someone wanted to send out minutes just for reference, but there couldn't be a back and forth. So let's make sure that's clear.
It doesn't sound like having somebody come to the next meeting will make any difference anyway.
Yeah, I mean, I think we more so have to decide how we're going to get things done. So as a vice chair, I think, I had committed to following up on action items when I thought that there would be action items in the meeting minutes. But at this point, it feels like, somebody has to take minutes and we have to follow up on action items because we're just not getting some things done in between meetings that we, used to do pretty much in harmony with, the work that we did on RCC. So just trying to figure out how to, how I think we should handle this. And, as a commission, I think we need to decide how we want to handle it going forward.
What if we don't approve the meeting minutes? What happens next?
I personally think that would be bad practice because there has to be an official record of the votes.
Well, I know we take a vote and
Items.
most members agree that they don't approve the meeting minutes.
To what end?
What's that?
To what end? What's the?
We're not comfortable with what we're seeing in the meeting minutes.
I mean, I guess my recommendation would be to pass it, and then we can have a discussion with one of the administrators to talk about the reasoning behind it. Because, like Phil said, that's my understanding too. Is it's coming from administration in an effort to streamline staff time. So,
okay. So who will reach out to the administrator to see if they're available for the next meeting?
I'm drafting an email right now.
Okay.
So we're streaming staff time at the expense of our time. I think that's really disrespectful.
Yeah, and our time is all volunteer time. All right, so any other further discussion on the meeting minutes from January?
I guess
There
I
isn't- there
missed
isn't
that
a-
meeting, so I'll abstain from voting.
Andrew, you can vote even if you miss the meeting.
Okay.
Just for clarity, that's okay under Robert's rules. I checked that out.
Okay.
It seems like there's no point in having any discussion in the minutes because nothing will change.
Yeah. All in favor of approving the January 8th, 2024 RCC meeting minutes, say aye.
Aye.
I
All opposed?
Aye.
Is that aye for yes, Diane, or aye for no?
Yes, I oppose. Sorry.
Oppose, okay. So that 5 members approved and 1 opposed. Okay, moving on to the next item. Item 4A, Hartoon Fields Plat, Stormwater Management. Ben, can you give us an update on what's this project all about?
Yes, absolutely. I'll share my screen here. All right, can everyone see this little map up there?
Yep.
All right, so this is kind of an overview of stormwater management at the Hartung Field plat. The plat is basically within the bounds of this black line here. So this is the Lacey Haight Farm Road intersection on the east side of town here, if everyone's familiar with that. So here's just kind of some aerial imagery of the site. There are wetlands. Everything in this purple color here is a delineated wetland. So you can see it's kind of on the south end of the site and along the east end of the site. And then there's a smaller little wetland pocket here, kind of by the train tracks. The site generally kind of flows in 2 directions. There's a high point by where my cursor is. So you get some that flows off to the west, the majority flows off to the east. All of this water eventually makes its way into Swan Creek. So I think the reason why we're discussing this here is because this plat had some more stringent stormwater management requirements imposed on it. Those requirements came from the Capital Area Regional Planning Commission, or CARPC. And they passed a resolution, I want to say in the 2014 timeframe, when the neighborhood study or land use study was being completed for this area. And one of their requirements was that this development would have to achieve what they call 100% stay on. So we could just think of it basically as whatever volume of water runs off this site over the course of an average year right now. When they go and develop it, that volume of water can't be any more running off the site than what it is today. So they call that 100% infiltration. So, again, in an average annual year, once this site is developed, there will be no increase in the volume of stormwater runoff coming off this site. So that's different because it's 90% everywhere else. In fact, the city is not even able to pass an ordinance if the city wanted to require 100% stand for all development. There's actually a state statute prohibiting municipalities from doing so. So the only reason this could be enforced is because it came from a resolution from a capital or a regional planning commission.
Ben, how do they
So-
define average?
So it's kind of interesting. They took data from, I think it was the Madison Airport in the 80s. I don't remember the exact year. It's in the 1980s. So they basically took, all right, here's 365 days. Here's what the rainfall volume was for or the rainfall depth for each of those days. And it's basically that they determined that was kind of representative of an average year, whatever that is, 1982 rainfall. And that's basically the industry standard in Wisconsin, or at least in the Dane County, southeastern Wisconsin area, or southern Wisconsin, for any kind of development, water quality modeling. It's all done typically in this program called Wind Slam, and that's the rainfall that the DNR wants you to use. So that's kind of how the average annual rainfall is defined.
Hey, Ben, why is CARPC want to be more stringent than the 90%?
I think just primarily due to the wetlands that are bordering the site, and just kind of the importance of Swan Creek. I would expect to see maybe a resolution like that, or a requirement like that maybe coming into play into other sites, or into other areas of Fitchburg potentially. So they really only get involved because they have to approve any kind of sanitary sewer extension, or if you're bringing in basically a new sewerage area, they have to approve that, and that all kind of gets mixed in with stormwater management requirements. Usually their recommendation or their requirement is just the same as what the county ordinance or the city ordinance already is, but in this case, again, it was more stringent. And I wasn't around when that resolution passed, or when they were going through this kind of land use planning exercise, but from my understanding, it was basically because you've got this little intermittent branch of Swan Creek running directly through the site, and some associated wetland areas that these are probably primarily fed through groundwater recharge. So it was important that they wanted to make sure that the water that was landing on the site was generally staying in this area to help with groundwater recharge of the creek. That would be, I believe that's probably the main reason why they have this 100% stand requirement here.
So Ben, do you know when the city approved this project?
Yeah, so they had a plat. The Hartung Fields final plat was approved late in 2023. So the platting has been approved. There were some plans for this western part of the site that have now been approved. And then pretty much this whole eastern part of the site is, I haven't seen any kind of plans for development for that area. But when they go and do when they completed their stormwater management report, they did it for this entire plat. So, we've got their stormwater management plan for even these areas that aren't, going to be developed imminently, pretty much.
Gabriella, was this brought to the attention of the council?
I'm trying to recall if we had a conversation specifically about that aspect of it. We certainly, I believe we looked at the plat. I don't know. I'd have to revisit my notes. It's been a while. There was recently, though, come through Plan Commission, part of that like top left corner of the facility has been approved. I'm trying to think. It's actually, they're going to start breaking ground if they haven't already.
Oh, they have, yeah.
Yeah.
So but the reason I asked that question is because it's, a lot of the features that are happening in development are things that the RCC would be interested in. And as far as I can tell, this project was never brought to our attention. And I want to know why.
I mean, there's a lot of development projects.
I know,
more
but
of them are,
that's a concern I have, that we're not seeing projects that have environmental components to them not being brought to us. I mean, that's what we're here for. Right? I mean, that's in our mission statement.
sure. And I guess if there's any, is there any particular feature of the stormwater management planning that you would be particularly interested in? Because there are some limitations as far as, you know, what the city can enforce. I mean, if they meet the ordinance for, you know, water quality, peak rate, infiltration, and any other and then, you know, again, here they're meeting a more stringent one from CARPC, but you know, there are some state statutes that prevent the city from, you know, basically saying, no, we need you to do more here. Like I said, specifically with infiltration, I mean, the city just, I mean, the hands are kind of tied with that just due to that state statute. But
I mean, I haven't read through the plan or anything like that, what's going on at the site other than what you're sharing tonight, but it is embarrassing when you get environmental organizations reach out to you and say, hey, what's going on? And you have no idea. And we should have an idea what's going on. I mean, it has a stormwater component, it's got parkland. There's other probably environmental features that we should know about. So, you know, like if you look at the map here, the other map, it shows parkland. Has that drainage area actually been designated parkland by the city? If you
on
pull up
this,
the map.
this map here,
Well, go over to the corridor where it shows, and move further to the right. It's not this map. There's a map.
I mean, like I said, the final, here we go. So the final
right
plat
there.
has been
It says
approved.
parkland. That's just already existing vegetation, a corridor that's there. As you said, an intermittent tributary to Swan Creek. Who gave the designation as parkland?
Well,
we
I guess
credit
first
for
off,
that? What's that?
I don't know that this is 100% representative of their final platting. This was just used for their stormwater management report, but that's more of a planning thing. So, I mean, for any kind of plat, there has to be a certain amount of land dedicated to the city for basically parkland, or I think they have the option of paying the city X number of dollars per acre if they are unable to or choose not to dedicate land to the parkland or to park.
So in this case, what is it?
Yeah, I mean, there's definitely land that's been dedicated to park uses here. I don't have the final plat pulled up, but like I said, that final plat has been approved. So I believe it's parkland, dedicated as parkland. It's a buffer zone, so they can't put any impervious area within like 200 or 300 feet of the wetland boundary. You can put ponds and stuff, but you can't put parking lots. So I think typically when you have an instance like that, commonly this area is kind of dedicated to as parkland, just because there's that's probably what it will be used for. I think I saw some I don't know exactly what the city's going to do there, but maybe you have some walking trails through here, because it is kind of it's right next to this little creek. So, I mean, I don't think it's going to have like a playground or that kind of a park or athletic fields, but, that's, I guess, how that area is determined to be park and what's going to be park, what isn't. That's more of a planning side of things.
Instead of parkland, it's open space then. Because when I see the parkland, it means there's going to be trails. There could be like you said, swing sets, all kinds of other things that could be developed in there as a park, which would be of concern. So particularly as a tributary to Swan Creek.
Right.
So,
Ben, did this go to the city and then to CARPC? Was that the process?
So CARPC passed their resolution, I think when the city was still just kind of doing land use planning here. So that resolution was from like 2014. When, Hartung and their engineers and they sent us, their stormwater management report and their concepts and stuff probably about the same time they sent it to CARPC. I guess I'm not sure they did see it and approved it ultimately, CARPC.
I guess in relation to Ron's comment, in the past, some of these have been brought to RCC, and maybe there's nothing that we can do or not do, but it's more of an FYI. There's
Sure.
a development on the west side over by I can't think of the road that incorporated quite a bit of stormwater mitigation things that was brought to RCC just as this is what we're doing, and it was nice to know that was being done. I think that was over and above what was requested of them. So just going forward, I think it would be nice for these things to come to RCC.
Yeah, I could certainly bring these larger plats. I'm assuming you're not trying to see every single development project. Our meetings would go on and on and on and lose time to talk about other things. But as far as these larger scale plats, I think we could do that.
Yeah, I think, also because we have isn't our monitoring station on Swan Creek too?
There is, yep.
So, just, with that type of situation, like you said, probably not everyone, but when we're next to a creek, especially one where we have a monitoring station, this is a, one. So just, I think, if it's a single apartment building, and no proximity to a creek, then, probably it's not a situation that we would look at. But I think one of the reasons we moved our meetings up to the second Monday of the month was because of the referral timeline, was to try to get, an opportunity to see more of these, because I think we've had this conversation before. And so the recommendation, at that time was to move up our meeting to be the second Monday of the month instead of the third Monday. So that change was made, with the hopes that we could see more like this going forward. So that's all I've got to say.
Sure. Well, I guess if that's interesting to everyone here, I'll just go over a really brief overview of what this plan actually is. So, just based on the natural topography of the site, the low sides are, on the east and the west side. So that's what, where you're going to put your stormwater basins. On this west side here, they've got 2 infiltration basins, 2 wet ponds. So water will first go into the wet ponds, get cleaned up a little bit, and then it discharges into these infiltration basins. So these infiltration basins are really key to meeting that 100% stay on requirement. Over here on the east side, you've got, again, 1 wet pond and then 1 larger infiltration basin. They kind of came up with a clever way to not put so much burden on these private sites here. So they're over treating basically impervious area in the right of way. So all these roads, all the runoff from the roads gets sent to this wet pond and infiltration basin. And I think the roads, this is going to sound weird, but it's 103% stay on. It's like, how do you get more than 100%? Well, some rainfalls, you're going to have water run off this site. If you're over 100%, that means there's actually less water running off the site before. So yeah, these basins are treating like 103 or 104% from the right of way, which allowed these private basins to have to do slightly under 100%. And then when you look at the whole drainage area, it's 100%. So you're kind of mixing and matching, but it gets you the same result. And then these other little, green and blue shapes that you can kind of see scattered across these private sites. These are just some general locations of, where one of these sites might locate their stormwater practices. These are pretty big lots. It doesn't mean that they're going to have a biobasin right in this drive aisle here, but maybe they make it pervious pavement and have a couple of smaller rain gardens. That's really kind of up to them. They just have to meet the stormwater requirements, and really, if they, we can't tell them exactly how to do it, as long as it meets what they're proposing is meeting DNR guidance, city and county ordinances, any other kind of extraneous resolutions. They can, they have some leeway to design their site how they want it to. Yeah, and here's just kind of a summary of, on the west side, they're at 97.7% stay on. On the east side, they're at 102.6%. So overall, they're at 100.5% stay on. And, with these numbers, there's a lot of assumptions going on when you're doing these engineering calculations. So, you can't say like, yeah, it's going to be exactly 97.7. It's going to be exactly 102.6. But, these are just kind of using the best tools that we have, available to us to make these predictions. And you can see they're final when you look at both sides, the whole plat. They're showing just a hair over 100%, which satisfied CARPC's requirement. I guess I really don't have too much else to add. Are there any questions?
I don't have any more, but again, just to follow up what Diane said and what I said earlier is that, it'd be nice to be aware, and Jim said it too. Chris said, sorry, Jim, that, we be made aware of, certain projects like this that you think should come to our attention. It's a big project and we didn't know it was happening. So that shouldn't happen.
Okay.
Okay, any other discussion on item 4A? If not, we can move on to item 4B, the Fitchburg Sustainability Awards. You want to pull up the thing you had before, Ben, that would be great.
Yep. So this was actually brought to my attention by Mayor Julia. She had acknowledged that the city of Middleton just implemented a sustainability award. If you got a chance to look at the packet here, there's a couple of different examples of what sustainability could mean. Is it environmental education, renewable energy use? If there's any business, organization, individual that is going above and beyond in any of these categories, I don't know if they call themselves the Resource Conservation Commission. I think their Middleton's group maybe goes by another name, but similar scope. They implemented this, and they'll be voting on different applicants, and then eventually, I think coming up soon this spring, they'll announce the award winners. I don't know if they're going to do more than one. But it's just kind of a way to recognize people in the community that have gone above and beyond. So the discussion today is this something really that the group would be interested in implementing some kind of a similar award or way to recognize people in the community, businesses, groups, whoever, that have shown, a dedication to just, any kind of sustainability advancement, whatever form that may be.
Yeah, I think it's a great idea. And I think it's something that we as a commission should support. I mean, I think we need to look at this here and see if there's other categories that we might want to include. Something like a student leadership award. What students are out there helping, with sustainability in our community. I didn't really see anything on green building design. So it'd be nice to have something like that. You think of all the work that Promega's been doing over there in their facilities that, they've done a great job and I guess, putting sustainability features in their design. So I'd like it. And I think we should move forward with something like this. And it would be probably good if somebody, maybe Phil, I don't know if you could do additional research or if there's
Yeah, I
something
can.
you need.
Sorry.
Go ahead. Sorry, Phil.
Oh, I was just going to say I have a monthly call with I'm sure I've mentioned this, with the other Dane County sustainability leads. So I can ask Kelly over in Middleton, because she is the staff liaison to the Middleton Sustainability Committee. Just ask her a little more detail on that. I'd be curious how applications are received, how they handle the review process, all of that. But yeah, that should be easy enough to get some more info from her on what it looks like in Middleton.
We
We
considered doing this. Oh gosh, I can't remember, Ron. I know I emailed you that I found some notes on this, and I think it was maybe 10 years ago. We had a sustainability intern at the time who drafted quite an elaborate scorecard.
Mhm.
And we decided at that time, first of all, that it was way too involved, more involved than we had the time to deal with. And there were a lot of unanswered questions. And I guess my question on this one is, who is going to administer it?
Well, yeah, that would be a question. I think it can be as simple or as complicated as you want to make it. I think honestly, the hardest part about it, I think, would be letting people know that this program exists. I really don't have a fear of getting inundated with so many applications that it would just be too much work. I just really don't see that happening.
And I can also say, having done something similar to this with when I was in the Dane County Environmental Council, it was more for grants than for sustainability awards. That one was very involved and took up a lot of the council's time. But for an award like this, rather than grant funding, I think it could be much more simple, as Ben mentioned. If we got to discussing details and you decided, this is going to distract too much from the other things RCC wants to do, another option is to, we can talk to the mayor and say, hey, love this idea. Dane County's Office of Energy and Climate Change does have their Climate Champion Awards. So simply promoting that could be an alternative if it seems like this would be too much effort. So there's a couple options available.
So are you thinking that RCC is going to be administering this?
I think that was the mayor's idea, and that's why I'd want to ask Kelly about Middleton. I think it's Middleton's Sustainability Committee that administers it. It's not a staff-run thing. So that would have to be a discussion.
Yeah, I don't know how that would look like. Either Phil or I gets the applications via email. We send them out to the group, and then next RCC meeting we go through. We say, hey, I like these three. Have a discussion.
Yeah.
Pick a couple.
It might almost be a subcommittee thing if we wanted to do it. Like that subcommittee would just, they'd be partly on point with, like you said, Ben, getting the word out about it. That's one aspect to it. But I like kind of where Phil's going with it too, to understand kind of, how many applications they're getting, what's the process they're going through. I think that'll be good information to get. I like the idea of it, but I also, know that there's other sustainability awards already in Dane County with, I wasn't aware of that one that you had just mentioned, but there is also with Sustain Dane, they have the Sustain Dane awards each year with sustainability. But I do kind of like, the Fitchburg focus. I think, we can really gear that at Fitchburg businesses and also get in front of the Chamber of Commerce as, kind of a motivating thing. One of the things we'd have to consider is like, what's, if you win the award, what do you get some recognition and, a plaque, how we want to handle those types of situations as well. So, yeah, I think a lot of things to figure out. I like the idea though. I think it's worth exploring further.
Yeah. I agree, Chris. So Phil, hopefully you can find out some additional information and share it with us at the next meeting.
Yep, for sure.
Okay. Also, find out, I think, Chris, did you mention cost? What costs the city of Middleton would incur with this?
Yeah, I'd be interested in that. I mean, I think we generally have funds available within our different funds, but that might be something we need to budget for, going forward. I'm assuming that we probably would get, if we decide to go forward, we're getting more structure in place this year and probably kicking it off next year. So, we could budget for that if we decide that we want to move forward.
Okay.
Jim, looks like you got your hand raised.
Yeah, so just following on the suggestions, one thing to consider is instead of having the awards ourselves for a smaller unit in Dane County, Fitchburg, is one thing we could do is possibly advocate for and or nominate Fitchburg for those larger Dane County or Sustain Dane awards. So another option would be as the Resource Conservation Committee, not having our own awards platform, but again, possibly advocating for and nominating businesses and similar in Fitchburg for those other county or statewide awards.
And there's a good model for that with how Bike Fitchburg as a nonprofit has really worked with the business community around Fitchburg to encourage them to apply for bike-friendly business recognition, helps them with applications and the like. So Chris, the one I was mentioning is Dane County's Climate Champion Awards. Claudia and I submitted a few applications for the city of Fitchburg back in 2020, the inaugural year of those. And Fitchburg did, as a city, receive four distinctions there. But that's open to municipalities, nonprofits, businesses. So yeah, definitely different approaches that can be taken that'll all mean different lifts for different people.
Mm-hmm.
So Phil, do you know, has any city business or organization, I guess won any of these awards in Fitchburg?
The Climate Champion?
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Any of the Dane County awards? So
yeah, that's the Dane County one. Maybe I should be, but I'm not up to speed on what other Fitchburg businesses have received the award. I know the city did. We got a 3-star award for water use, and then 2 1-star and a kind of a rising recognition for 3 of our buildings for energy performance, the 2 newest fire stations in the library. I'm not sure who else around Fitchburg has been awarded, but I'm pretty confident others have been.
Phil, you seem to have a pretty good grasp of the other awards that are out there. Like maybe we could just, as part of our discussion when we're assessing this, like let's, and kind of taking in what everybody else is saying, let's kind of lay those out there. Like these are the ones that are already out there. And, that might make it, a little bit clearer as to should we move forward with our own awards, or do we feel like we can be an advocate, like Jim was saying, and kind of help guide people in our community or nominate them for these awards instead.
Yep. Yeah, I think that would be good to look at.
Okay. Great. Well, thanks, Phil, and thanks everyone. Okay, let's move on to item 5, agenda review, old business. Item A, the 2023 RCC annual report. Hopefully everyone had a chance to look at it in their agenda packet. I thought it looked good, Ben and Phil.
Excellent. Is there any other discussion on this?
I thought it looked good as well.
Any other comments from the commissioners?
Can you send out the final version then to us?
I will.
Please.
I'll get this draft off and send you the final.
Thank you. Nice job.
Yeah. Okay, if no further discussion, let's move on to item 5B, which is the 2024 RCC calendar of events. Hopefully everyone's looked at that and provide their comments.
So I'll just mention one thing, in terms of, I think it might be on page 3, if we able to go down to that real quick. Was there another page? Oh.
Is it the brainstorm event?
Well, it was all the brainstorming idea. Yeah, that one. So, I think I'd mentioned that we were going to try to, we had a place reserved for the EV event, and that was going to happen in March. However, the library, got wind of it and mentioned that they're doing a commissioning project with their chillers at that time, and they need most of the parking garage to be used for that project. And so we'll be in the middle of March and not having a garage. It's not looking favorable for that event. And so in discussions with the library and also with MG&E, like it's looking like that's going to move to June. So that would fall kind of right in between our other two events. So we would have a busier stretch coming up, but a lot of the planning we could do for that now. So I think it could work out, but I think the possible EV event is more likely in June because one, we'll have the option to go inside if it's raining out. So we could use the garage of the basement at that time. And two, more likely we'll be able to have it outside and that'll work just fine. So that's the only real change to this, the brainstorm, if that's part of the calendar, but I don't think that it is. I think that's.
Yeah, I suppose it's not an official part of the calendar, but included it on here just for discussion. And I guess I'll just mention waterway cleanup this year. I don't know if we ever talked about a date. We've got April 20th, that Saturday, if no one's opposed to it. I just want to start to get some notifications out about that.
When
Just
is our
wanna mention
electronics?
if we get it too late, we have to contend with mosquitoes.
Well, we've got the recycling event is the 13th. So another option we could do April 6th.
Is that Easter weekend? Do we know?
No.
I think that's the weekend before is Easter.
Okay. I would be more for April 6th.
6th, so we got two 6. Anyone opposed to that?
I think Crazy Legs is on the 20th.
I think it's the
positive, but-
27th.
Oh, is it? Okay.
Yeah. But there's other Earth Day events going on the 20th. So, you're going to be competing with those events if we do the waterway cleanup potentially. So that's why we've always, that and mosquitoes and growth of, in those areas are all reasons why we try to have it in the first half of April generally.
All right.
Of course, there's risk any Saturday you go in April.
Yeah, April 6th looks fine to me.
All right. That's that done.
So Brent, been in that, we no longer have the med drop events, right?
Right.
So that
Yeah.
has to come off.
Yeah, I'll get that removed there. Any other comments, questions, concerns on the calendar here?
Oh, let's see here. Where was it? The dark sky or the lighting ordinance?
March.
Yeah,
Under
so
Mark?
we'll have that for that'll be an item for next meeting.
Okay. What about the salt ordinance? I mean, the mayor
Well,
was
that
still
one-
interested in that.
I think I removed that one for now. The city wanted the direction I got was to just kind of continue focusing on outreach and education. So we've been sending basically informational literature to mostly businesses, but there were a couple residents in there as well.
So did that come from the mayor then, or?
Yeah, administration, we'll just say.
Well, sometimes when you say administration, does that mean the people below the mayor or mayor and everybody else?
Sometimes I don't know
The
the
mayor
answer to
about
that.
this a couple of weeks ago. And she didn't know what direction, she didn't know that the lighting ordinance or the salt reduction ordinance was ever brought to her attention.
Okay. Well, it sounded like they talked about it, our city administrator and the mayor. Maybe that wasn't the case, but
Okay. So we do have it in November, it says promote salt reduction efforts and methods. So,
yep.
so. Is that like an event or is that something that the city staff would be doing or?
Yeah, that's just kind of a general item there. Someone maybe will write an article on it. Or maybe I'll have an update for what Fitchburg is going to do, or maybe that we're going to try something new, or just kind of a general thing to keep that topic somewhat of a focus, I guess.
That I would think, Ron, that somebody might write an article for the Star. If the city starts using the Star again, there might be maybe some Saltwise little blips in there. We'll put out the signs again.
Okay,
That sort of thing.
okay.
Ben, you're keeping a list of everybody that you've sent something to?
Yep.
Oh, great, good. Thank you.
Has there been any feedback from it so far?
No one's emailed me or called me with questions.
But we have gotten positive feedback for doing it. At least I have.
Yeah, I've heard some people just say, actually one of the biggest things I get or I've heard is people that walk their pets appreciate it, because I'm not a dog owner myself, but gets in their paws, and people seem to really think about that quite a bit.
Yeah, I will second that. My yellow lab will actually get chemical burns in her paws if she gets salt stuck in her paws. So I can see why that's a pet owner concern.
I mean, during that cold and snowy period we had a couple of weeks ago, I did go to, different businesses, restaurants. I did see a limited use of salt on their sidewalks in front of their businesses. I was kind of surprised. So maybe it's working, getting out there, getting the word out.
That'd be nice.
Yeah. All right, any further discussion on the calendar for 2024? If not, let's move on to the next item. on the agenda 5C, curbside recycling and drop-off site update. First, I'd like to thank, Ben and Diane for putting this information together. It was really informative. I learned a lot when I read through it. So please go ahead and share the information, Ben and Diane.
You wanna go ahead, Diane? Definitely appreciate the work you put into this. If you wanna kind of start the conversation here, I know you clearly spent a lot of time working on this. So thanks again for that.
You're welcome. Actually, the first couple of pages is sort of a summary of our discussion from the last meeting, and then I contacted Pelletieri to get a little bit more information about it. We talked about the fact that at the last meeting and actually the November meeting, that our cardboard collected at our drop-off site is extremely excessive when compared to our neighboring communities, and that's also that analysis provided by Pelletieri is included in the packet. And we talked about at the last meeting, well, first of all, how much it's costing us, which is I bolded that's $49,212 a year. And the options are bulleted. We have talked about controlling or addressing problems at the drop-off site since my first meeting with RCC. We talked about that, so I'm talking a long time ago. They added a camera. They upgraded the camera because the other camera wasn't able to read the license plates well enough. We've added signage. We added a fence, and I just found out from Ben recently that the gate was only shut if it got dark before staff went home. So now the gate is open. So essentially the drop-off site is open 24/7. Things that we could do to address what apparently is drop-offs from non-residents. We could eliminate the cardboard at the drop-off site altogether, keeping in mind that at least this cardboard is getting recycled. It's just getting recycled at Fitchburg's taxpayers' expense. We could reduce the drop-off site hours and staff it. Middleton has very limited drop-off hours, and they staff it. And I think that I just threw out a couple of options in here for staffing. For example, we could have it open on like Wednesdays and then on Saturdays. And the cost of doing that, based on Ben provided me what we could expect to pay staff, and I added a factor for benefits. So you can see what that cost is. We could require a drop-off permit to access the drop-off site, which would entail either having somebody staff it to check for the permit or some kind of a activated ticket that opened the gate. I guess looking at all of this, my inclination would be to just reduce the hours that the drop-off site is open. This would mean, I think that we should keep it open on a Saturday, keeping in mind that people who work during the week still might need to access it to drop something off. And so if we're going to have it open on a Saturday, we would need to staff it on a Saturday. And then considering that some people work on weekends, keep it open, on maybe Wednesday afternoons. That would be my suggestion. Or we could just lock it now, even though it's not dark. We could try locking it when staff goes home and just have it open during the week and not at all on weekends.
So Diane, how would we block off those dumpsters then?
The whole site is fenced with a gate.
So
it would be locking everything off.
Okay, so you wouldn't have access for drop off of vegetation or picking up wood chips and things like that.
That's right.
I guess one other option, Ben, this hasn't occurred to me before. Have we ever looked into external funding to help pay for these additional charges, grants, and the like? So I could also reach out to the DNR, to Kathy Coots with Dane County, and just see if they know of any way. You know, obviously, we're serving as a resource for the community, and the ideal situation would be to keep these options open, because obviously there's a demand for it. But I wonder
Yeah,
if there's any kind of
certainly
funding available.
something that we could look into. I know we apply for and receive the DNR's just general responsible unit recycling grant every year. But certainly there's, you know, almost always more money out there somewhere. So we could look into it for sure.
Yeah. So yeah, that's one that outside of the meeting, Ben and I can chat about. Folks we can reach out to. I don't love the thought of cutting back on this, but understand the concerns and rationale.
You know, Ron, I just want to say that was a good point that you brought up about, you know, you lock when you in the current configuration to lock down the dumpsters, you have to lock down the whole site. But maybe there would be a way where we could reorganize the site so people could still drop off brush and yard waste and pick up compost, wood chips, and drop off oil at any time, but we would just have limited hours for cardboard, metal, and polystyrene, because those are kind of the three items that I would say are probably abused the most. I mean, people definitely put brush in the yard waste pile, but it's not like it's the end of the world. It all gets chipped up and into compost anyways. So, I mean, maybe we don't care if people can continue to use that how it is and just focus on, you know, maybe reconfiguring the site so people can still access some services all the time and just limit the hours on the services that may be getting abused a little bit more. It's something I can look into.
Yeah.
I have a question too about does the camera actually, is it good enough to pick up illegal dumpers that might be non-Fitchburg residents? And are those people actually fined?
Yes, so it is good enough to read license plates and pick up, you know, the illegal dumpers. So basically what'll happen is a staff member will say, hey, this giant piece of plastic doesn't belong in the brush pile or anywhere here. And then they can go back, see when it was dumped, and get the registration information from the vehicle, and then they're sent some kind of a citation. The problem is with the cardboard, you know, if someone's just coming in and dumping cardboard, we're not going to recognize that as someone like, oh, they're not distinguishing a Fitchburg resident from a non-Fitchburg resident. It's kind of the problem. Because people could say, oh, well, you know, this is my friend's car, or whatever, I'm dropping something off for a friend that lives in Fitchburg, or my grandma, or what, you know, any number of stories. But yeah, for the kind of egregious acts of illegal dumping, certainly that we do pick those up and are able to cite those instances.
Okay.
I mean, if we eliminated the cardboard, just say in a scenario, the dumpsters and everything, as I understand, Diane, that's $49,000 a year just for those 8 dumpsters.
There were two, there's actually 10. There were 2 more added. So it's 49,000. This is based on our last contract, which expires this year.
Yeah. I mean, if we eliminate that service, would there potentially be, I mean, people are gonna complain that, hey, you eliminated service, but you're still charging me the same amount. Would they get their, bills, refuge bills reduced to reflect that?
I
Or
don't,
even the curbside recycling, if we eliminated that? I mean,
This-
that's a big ticket number too.
I don't think we would eliminate curbside recycling, but we don't know what the next contract's going to show. I mean, in theory,
Yeah,
if we eliminated, I'm not advocating to eliminate the cardboard drop off. But if we did, that 49,000 in theory would reduce everybody's annual refuse and recycling on your tax bill. That would fall to reduce that, but we're entering a new contract and we don't know what those costs are going to be. So
Right.
it may just offset cost increases. Did you want to add something, Ben?
No, I completely agree with what you said.
Yeah.
So what are everybody's thoughts so we can move on to the next part?
Okay.
It's really good to have the numbers.
Yeah.
I mean, it's
it
like
is.
actually seeing the cost is really interesting. The unlimited curbside, that being that expensive is pretty wild for
Yeah, for 96 households.
Yeah, I
yeah.
was gonna talk about that next,
Yeah,
but
and then, oh, sorry.
That's
And then,
okay.
with the drop-off site just being, it's good to see the number. And I don't think it's absurd I think it's okay to limit hours. Like, I think most people would expect that that's probably what we would do anyway. And it's just like,
Yeah.
happens to be that we haven't done it yet. But I think if we implement that, people will be like, oh, that makes sense. Like, that was crazy that we could drop it off anytime. Like, so I don't think it would be unreasonable to limit the hours. But that is a staffing concern. Staffing is hard. So
Do we have somebody working on the weekends, Ben?
So there's an on-call person that I believe works on the weekends, and then I think there is, I want to say Parks has someone that works part-time on the weekends.
I know they do in the summertime.
Yeah, because I believe they typically are like cleaning shelters or park bathrooms and that kind of stuff is what I want to say that the weekend work usually consists of. But you're right, in the winter, I believe those hours are cut substantially down, just due to the fact that parks aren't really being used as much as they are in the summer.
What if we tried for the next 2 months, just locking up at when somebody goes home at 4 or 5, whenever they go home. So it's not accessible in the evenings, and then leaving it open on weekends and see if we notice a difference. I don't know how much you would notice from Pelletieri because they're going to come and empty them anyway. But you can get volume information from them.
Yeah, I mean, I'd be all for doing that. I don't know if that would need to go to like Board of Public Works to officially change the hours. Maybe that's a good question. I just want to confirm. I don't think it would. But that would be I think a good exercise and worthwhile.
I would like to bring another perspective to the discussion in limiting non-Fitchburg residents. If you look at the life cycle, anybody driving 10, 15 miles just to drop off cardboard because it's free is also just a waste of gasoline and vehicle and similar. It just as far as cost economics go, driving to drop off cardboard doesn't make sense. So whatever we do to limit cardboard from being deposited from non-Fitchburg citizens is not just a tax burden on us. It just doesn't make sense environmentally to drive 10, 15 miles just to drop off cardboard.
We're thinking, Jim, that people are dropping it off on their way into or out of the city for some other purpose, not making, I mean, maybe they are making a special trip, I don't know, but it's a pretty convenient, the sighting is pretty convenient.
Yeah, so I guess just a third perspective, just to add on to it, it seems like this is something that a larger government organization such as Dane County would be good to have, is they have like 4 drop-offs like this that's managed by the county. So, then, Fitchburg doesn't have to take the burden. So just another consideration, cardboard recycling, everybody agrees is a good thing. So why not have Dane County doing something this and have it one in Sun Prairie, one in Fitchburg, one in Middleton, wherever. That just another thing to kind of think about as far as this type of process.
Yeah, that's an interesting thought. They kind of do that. I see with their well, I don't want to get off track, but they're kind of doing more food composting, and there's Dane County is setting up stations, across different areas. So it's kind of like you've got different cardboard stations, maybe a similar deal. But yeah, I hadn't really thought about bringing in another party.
But they would have to have a hire contractor like Pelletieri to do all that work then, right? So each municipality may have their own different contractor to handle.
Well, Ben, maybe explore options with Dane County. Phil brought up a possible grant.
Yeah.
Maybe mention to Dane County that we're apparently servicing part of the county with our cardboard drop-off site and see if they're willing to help with the cost. And in the meantime, can you explore somebody must have okayed shutting the gate when it was dark. So maybe explore just keeping that gate shut after business hours.
Yeah. Where's that gate at, Ben? I haven't been out there for a while.
So it's basically, well, I guess I can just pull up a map here quick. That would be the easiest.
And by the way, I do apologize for moving around. I'm at a conference and people came into my quiet spot, so I had to go find another place.
Yeah, we can tell by the palm trees in the background.
I'm
not in Madison.
I'm not rubbing it in at all.
No.
Maybe a little bit.
All right, so here's the site. You drive in, and then there's a gate right about there.
Right there, okay.
And then there is another gate back here. Someone could, I guess, drive through the back way, but that gate's also there too. So access is covered. We wouldn't need to install any new gates or anything.
And right now the hours are when?
It's daylight hours is the current
daylight
policy.
hours. Okay.
But the gate's not shut now. It was when it got dark before staff went home, but now that it stays light, right, Ben? Now that it stays light longer, it's essentially 24/7.
Yeah.
Are you ready to move on to curbside recycling? One of the reasons to address this, by the way, Pelletieri would like to discuss with the city the possibility of extending the contract rather than having an RFP sent out. But either way, whether Pelletieri extends the contract, we can still make changes. And if it's an RFP that goes out, Ben's going to need to know, what this is going to involve, what we want, any changes from the current system. So on the curbside recycling, I have to hand it to Pelletieri. They did an absolutely fabulous job for something that we were told by the previous employees couldn't be done. They got not only the number of households, but also the number of bags. So Ben and I were able to determine that most the households that are using unlimited curbside recycling are putting out generally 2 and 3 bags extra. But it's only 1.5% of our households that are doing that. And my suggestion is that we encourage those households to get either a bigger cart or a second cart and stop this unlimited curbside recycling. Pelletier doesn't want to do it. It's not safe for their employees, and it's not efficient. And I suspect this cost, the current cost, is just going to be going up because of those two factors. So,
And it's costing the city $74,000 a year for that, right? That
yes,
contract?
yeah.
That's one EV vehicle.
Pardon me?
I said that's one electric vehicle.
Yeah, good point. Yeah. So, is that the recommendation? I don't want to speak for everybody, but I really think that the time for unlimited curbside recycling, we have other options. I think most of the overflow is possibly cardboard, but if they have another cart or a bigger cart, it stays dry in the cart and they don't waste a plastic bag bagging it.
Do we know where those 96 households are at?
Most of them, based on Ben and my meeting with Todd, most of them are between, let's see, north of PD and east of Seminole Highway and west of Fish Hatchery Road. Right, Ben? Isn't that it?
I think that's what Todd had said. And it changes. But it sounded like primarily that was kind of the hot spot.
And based on the drivers, the information that they got, Monday and Tuesdays were the heaviest for, and those are the areas where they collect them.
Yeah, I think there's other options for folks that are, generating a lot of recyclables that, they're going to be able to properly recycle them without having for the city to pay for everyone for the unlimited recycling. They could get a bigger cart or mostly just get a bigger cart or a second cart. And it's 1.5%. Clearly, it's not really being used by many people.
The other thing is sometimes when I walk around and recyclables haven't been collected yet, people are not compacting their recyclables. I mean, you can break down cardboard and save a lot of space. There are a lot of things you can do to compress it more. So, I think that we tried to save money last time this contract was up. RCC recommended to eliminate unlimited curbside recycling, and the finance committee of all committees didn't go along with that.
Well, I would be in support of eliminating curbside recycling, unlimited. I don't know, do we have to make a motion on that so it gets the attention of people?
You got me. It's not going to be in the minutes.
Well, if it's a motion, it would be.
Yes.
Any other thoughts from the commissioners on keeping or eliminating the unlimited curbside recycling? Chris, Andrew?
Do you think the finance folks are looking at it like it's a negative for the city of Fitchburg if instead of looking at the dollars, they're like, oh, well, we're stopping unlimited curbside recycling. That makes Fitchburg less sustainable or something. Even though
that wasn't the reasoning. I listened to the meeting.
Okay.
The finance committee is comprised of a couple of council members in addition to staff, and two council members and staff. And at that time, maybe it's three, I don't remember, but one was very vocal that he didn't want city services reduced. He didn't think that was a good idea. And he was vocal enough that he persuaded. He was very persuasive, and that's why we still have it.
Okay, even though it's not really utilized.
Yes.
Well, I would be in
We
favor
did,
of
although
getting
we
rid of it.
didn't, in fairness, we didn't have these stats then.
Yeah.
Okay,
I'm in favor of getting rid of the unlimited, and the other factor was the safety. Like they're not doing it in any other communities, and it's a safety issue for their drivers. So,
Right.
um, that's one component to it. But like all of these numbers are things that weren't part of that past argument. Like Diane said, that's exactly how I remember it. It was a reduction of services, and we didn't want to go there, even though nobody put a cost on that or knew how many households were actually using that service. With this information and combined with the safety of, the concerns that Pelletier has with unlimited recycling, I think that's a pretty strong case for eliminating it.
Mhm.
And we can share other options too. Like there are other options available. Adding another cart is an option for those folks, or a larger cart. So I think if we do a good job of promoting those options, hopefully that eliminates some of the challenges that might be there for those residents or households that are using that service.
Gabriella, do you know where we stand on the city either having their own newsletter or starting to use the Star?
I still don't have a final update. I can check in again.
Because if this change goes up for next year, I mean, we really need to communicate this, or alders are going to be getting calls, and the city's going to be getting calls.
Yeah, I mean, the other option is to eliminate unlimited curbside recycling, but keep the cardboard facility for a while. I don't know, like eliminating both at the same time.
Yeah.
Is a concern. Like it does feel like a lot. You're losing a lot.
Well, I don't think we were talking about eliminating both. I thought Ben was going to explore options for the drop-offs.
Yeah. No, I guess I know what you mean. I guess it's just eliminating the unlimited nature of the cardboard is what I meant. Obviously, we would still do it in some capacity. But yeah, sorry, I don't have an update on that.
Okay.
Yeah, I do like where Diane, thanks for all your work on these. I think this is really eye-opening information and good follow-up to the conversations we've been having with Pelletier. So I think this is really helpful, and I think will help to make good sound decisions moving forward. And I am in favor of Ben doing some follow-up on the on options. One being if the cardboard was limited to a certain number of hours per day, is there a space that we could reasonably do that at that facility and cordon that off somehow, but keep the more of the unlimited compost. That's what I see when I go there. I often go there like on a Sunday night, and when I do go, which is maybe a couple times a year, but I'm seeing so many people dropping off their compost, especially when we're in the months of like October and November. A lot of people are taking their yard waste out there, but I think more so like there's also an opportunity to like Jim was saying, look at the options for when those are getting picked up curbside. I definitely try to tell my neighbors about that, to eliminate the trips out there as well. But I do see a lot of people when I do go out there that are using the composting facility, and I just don't know if that's going to be a possibility to potentially pull the cardboard off and put that in a different section and limiting the hours on that. I think that's an interesting option to look into.
Thanks, Chris.
Jim,
Go
you got your hand raised.
Yes, sorry. I've just got 5 minutes left because our conference banquet starts in 5 minutes. So I don't know if anybody had any questions of me. I know I'm jumping ahead, but I will say that the geothermal article was posted in the Fitchburg Star column, and I did get a little bit of feedback from that, and was happy to do that. So any questions or comments from me before I have to take off for the evening?
Thanks for
Oh.
taking the time to join us. Have a good evening.
Yeah, thank you for writing the article as well.
Thanks, Jim.
Thanks,
Thank
Jim.
you.
Thanks, everybody. I'll
Right.
be back in Madison on Thursday.
All right, thanks, Jim.
Yeah.
Bye.
All right, thanks for the input, Chris. So yeah, Diane and Ben, thank you for all your efforts in putting this together, because like, as Chris said, I think this will be useful as we look at the new contract that comes up with a renewal or Pelletary, so.
I just want to add that the savings by reducing some of the cardboard, if the Dane County won't help us with that, and we
Yeah.
decide to limit hours, the savings, we could still have it staffed 5 hours on Saturday and 5 hours on Sunday and still come out ahead. I mean,
Mhm.
we could still reduce hours and still save a lot of money.
Yeah,
Yeah, maybe in like the months of October, November, real heavy yard waste months, you could open the hours a little bit more or kind of change them seasonally.
Yeah.
So I think there's a lot of options, I guess.
I agree. Okay, if there's no further discussion, let's move on to item 5D, the Fitchburg Star articles. Diane, you have any updates?
No, we have people assigned in, I'm the last person who signed up. And I'll be writing the article for April, so.
Okay. And I've spoken with Andrew, and he's agreed to take over your role. So
Thank you, Andrew. I'll send you some information about that.
Yeah, that'd be great. 9 articles a month or 9 articles a year. Is that correct?
Well, we committed to 9. I haven't sent that email to the Star, because I wanted to copy whoever was taking over. But we committed to 9 last year and ended up writing 12. So we can always write more.
Okay.
But we should at least plan on doing 9.
Okay. Perfect.
yeah. Thank you, Andrew, for stepping up to do that.
Did we want to talk about I don't know how we're doing on time, but there was some information on leaf management.
Oh yeah, yes.
Do we want to touch? I can give a real short synopsis.
Yeah, that was interesting information as well. Thanks, Ben.
Just overall, reached out to some communities in southern Wisconsin. Got some information from Sun Prairie, who did a very similar exercise looking at this just at the end of 2022. We'll just get to the cost part, I guess. This was just kind of a real rough analysis. Kind of got 2 different options. Option A would be having a vacuum truck that could be operated by a single individual. So, that would be the most staff efficient. Option B, they've got these basically trailer mounted leaf vacuums, more labor intensive. You need multiple people to run them, but much cheaper upfront cost. A single operator vacuum truck, a decent used one, maybe $200,000. New ones, they're going to be around $300,000. Whereas a leaf vacuum trailer might be between $50,000 and $80,000. So kind of just taking those 2 options and looking at them a little bit further. I figured if the city wants to complete 2 leaf pickups, basically over 8 weeks from October to November, kind of the heaviest leaf season, it would take either 2 vacuum trucks or 2 trailer mounted leaf vacuums. Should be able to get through the city 1 pass in 4 weeks. Here I just took a look at some more annual costs. For the single operator vacuum truck, you would either need to get 2 additional staff people or 1 additional or no additional, but then, obviously the other things that they're doing, like patching roads, mowing ponds, what have you, wouldn't be able to get done. But if you look at it from more of what's the actual cost of their time, if you've got 2 staff people, whether they're new or already here, to run that thing 40 hours a week for 8 weeks, it's going to cost you about $29,000. So that's based on a public works maintenance workers' wages and benefits. These things are also expensive to maintain. I do need to pin down these equipment maintenance costs a little bit more. One of the reasons they can be so high, up to $50,000, would be if there was, it could be a lot more if you had a real issue, but just the time that the leaf vacuum is down, you're paying for the mechanic to work on it, but also the city, we got to collect the leaves now, probably having to make some sort of an outside arrangement so we don't fall too far behind schedule. So I think that's one thing that could really vary. That was some of the feedback we got from communities where they have a leaf vacuum program. They do run into some issues, but overall, it sounds like the residents appreciate it. It sounds like most people would prefer pushing their leaves to the curb rather than having to bag them. So that's a benefit that wasn't really quantified in this analysis. I guess that just depends on what folks around here think. Is it worth probably a little bit more money? So I'll just talk about option A. That seems to be the better. Yep.
My concern with that is that those leaves are going to be in the street, most likely, and then you have a rain event and those leaves are going to get into the gutters. I've seen this happen in St. Louis where I lived before. We had the same thing happen where everybody pushed their leaves out into the street for the pickup for vacuum. And those leaves, a lot of times, heavy rainstorms push all those leaves right into the gutters.
Yeah.
Actually, when I lived in Madison, they initially wanted leaves on the terrace, and then they moved to putting the leaves in the streets, and now they're back to the terrace. And I think that's an education process to have people leave them on the terrace and not in the street. But I understand your concern, Ron. But one of the I guess the thing that started this discussion was eliminating the plastic bag part, because we go through, meaning the city, an incredible number of plastic bags that people set their leaves on that are not reusable. So that was one of the things that I think that was what started this discussion.
Right.
And I think there's a big benefit to having a vacuum. I've seen the vacuum used in other communities, and you've done a really nice job, Ben, with this. I don't understand the 8-week part, because we only have 2 leaf pickups, and maybe we would have 3 because now we're doing it by the city, but I don't get the 8 weeks.
So the 8 weeks was based on kind of the, October and November, or, late September to early October, kind of, or early November being an 8-week period where the most leaf fall is. It also is weather dependent, maybe it's over 10 weeks. If it doesn't snow in November and people are able to get to the leaf, because once it snows, these leaf vacuums seem to have a lot of trouble with really wet, snow-covered leaves. Potentially, again, you can get a big enough leaf vacuum that'll suck up just about anything. But
are you thinking that we have 8 leaf pickups?
So there would be 2 leaf pickups. I think it could take 2 leaf vacuums up to 4 weeks to pick up the whole city. So
really?
I think it would
An event, right? So you're talking
Because
2
doesn't
events, each
Pelletary-
one 4 weeks.
it doesn't take Pelletieri that long to cover the city, does it?
No, so they can do it in a week, but they've got multiple trucks and they're just picking up bags and throwing it. I'm assuming
Okay.
that there's going to be, especially the first year,
Mhm.
there's going to be times where people aren't separating yard waste or brush from the leaves. You know, that's going to cause some issues and downtime with the vacuum. So I kind of conservatively, I'm estimating it would take 2 leaf vacuums a month to get through the entire city. It could take less time than that. That's just my preliminary estimate.
I think that it would be a problem if we can't use current staff. I'm not sure how you could hire people to work for just 8 weeks.
Yeah.
That's the concern, and kind of why I broke out what their annual wage would be. Like if you're getting 6 employees to run these leaf trailers, that's a huge number. But over the course of 8 weeks, that's the actual value of their time.
And the other thing, as you pointed out, we still have brush that we would have to get picked up.
Right.
So
right now the cost of Pelletieri is $65,000 a year.
That's what the city paid to Pelletieri in 23.
Okay.
For budgeting purposes, the city had 85,000 for 2024. And again, just estimate broadly, it's about 72,000 to 125,000, almost certainly probably on that higher end. Maybe if you do it for a few years, you kind of get into a groove, figure out, best practices, and you could see that number climb down. Certainly Pelletieri's price is extremely competitive when comparing it to this estimate. And again, this estimate isn't a super detailed. There's things I didn't account for. I wasn't, accounting for, okay, well, we got to sell, this vacuum that is at its end of life. What's the salvage cost or financing? And it wasn't like a super in-depth financial analysis, just to kind of get a big picture range of, what it's going to cost. And this, it's not that much higher than what's paid to Pelletieri. But I think the city could expect to pay more if they wanted to move forward with implementing a vacuum program.
Mhm.
well, as you point out, it's not apples to apples because it's this cost plus we still have to have Pelletieri pick up the brush or somebody pick up the brush. In Middleton, apparently Middleton residents are responsible for disposing of their own brush. They don't have curbside pickup. I don't see that happening in Fitchburg.
Mhm.
So I mean that's kind of the, I guess, short summary. If the city was wanting to pursue it, I guess the recommended option would be probably going with a vacuum truck, doing a little bit more research on, a particular product, trying to get a better handle on what these maintenance costs would be, and maybe trying to get a better handle on what that route would actually take. I'm positive 2 vacuum trucks could not get through the entire city in a week. But maybe 4 weeks is an overestimate. So there are some things that would have to get nailed down, but I think generally this is a fair high level estimate of what the city could potentially be looking at per year for a program like this. And ultimately, if there's interest.
Do you know how long it takes Stoughton to get through the city? They have 1 vacuum truck, if I remember correctly.
They are getting a second one, which is they're super excited about. Yeah, I'll have to ask them and see what they said on what their time was to get through it.
And then what do they do with their brush?
Stoughton, so they've got a pretty big compost operation. I don't know, maybe if they're taking the brush themselves. I would imagine their staff is probably taking the brush, but I don't know that for sure.
If Fitchburg staff took brush, Fitchburg would have to get a truck to do it, right? We don't have trucks that can haul brush, do we?
We do, probably not the most efficient way. They've got a big grapple truck with like an arm that can grab piles of brush, and a chipper truck so they could chip it right away. The city has maybe not the ideal equipment, but they do have equipment that could get the job done.
And it just seems like with all the issues we have with staff time and everything else, that it's more efficient for the city to have a contractor do this. I mean, I think if we could promote more reusing those recyclable bags that the city gives out, initially the first one is free and then $1 for the other ones. I think that if we could promote that more, that would eliminate a lot of the plastic bag use. But to me, it just seems like it's just a lot of work and maintenance and staff time and everything you have to worry about, even though the vacuum trucks probably do a good job. It's just like a nightmare.
Does the city have a different use for vacuum trucks too, like for cleaning out storm sewers or anything like that, where it wouldn't just be used for leaf cleanup?
Yeah, I don't know if the leaf vacuum trucks could be. I don't think they could probably be used to suck out sediment from storm drains. The city does
Yeah, I
have
think those are different type of vacuum trucks.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. You definitely don't want to destroy the leaf pickup truck, sucking up water and sediment.
I mean, the one thing that comes up is, maybe you could rent it out, but no one wants it when people only want it when you need it.
Yeah.
When leaves are falling. So probably not a lot of good uses for it during the off season.
Are there options to rent these trucks though?
Yeah, I believe you certainly can. I think there's a company up in more central Wisconsin, Whirlwind, that makes these trucks. You may be able to rent some, at least somewhat locally made. I don't know what their rental costs would be.
Is that something you could check into?
Yeah.
I think it'd be useful to know that.
Well, the other thing is, Ben, if the city buys 2 vacuum trucks, do they have a place to store them?
So I did talk with our street superintendent about that. He said he had seen a lot of communities that actually just store them outside, and it seems to be fine. So that would be, I think we'd probably store them outside, because you're right, there's not a lot of room in the shop, but apparently storing them outside doesn't cause problems.
But again, these things are going to be used, 8 weeks out of the year? So they're going to be sitting the rest of the time?
Yeah.
Yeah. So.
I think this is really good information to keep in mind, Ben. I don't know that, I guess we'll see what Pelletieri wants to do going forward, and how much that cost changes, but it doesn't seem right now like I think the best we can do is try to get people to reduce their use of plastic bags.
Yeah. Okay, any further discussion on this item? And thanks again for Ben for all that information. It is very useful. Okay. If not, I think we've already discussed 5D, the Fitchburg Star articles. Let's move on to item C, council update. Gabriella?
Just one update for y'all. We are meeting tomorrow night for council, and we have on our agenda a vote on the schematic design of the police services facility. And both options on the table include all the sustainability features recommended by RCC for a total of 2.5 million. And obviously that's a little bit dependent on what the credits come in. So like if we had more money in credits, they would they would put all that 2.5 million towards it. So we would just be able to put more solar panels or whatever on the building. So that vote is tomorrow night. We expect a lot of public comment, so it'll be a late night. But the council, I think, very clearly supports sustainability features. The one thing that has not been, it's not currently in the plan, but I do think is supported by the council, would be to add in infrastructure for electric vehicles. I just got estimates on that yesterday, so hopefully we can talk about that tomorrow. And even if we don't include it in the schematic design after tomorrow, I think that can come through in a budget amendment.
I thought that was part of our recommendation.
It wasn't within the scope of the 2.5 million.
It was not? Oh, I thought it was.
You know, I'll double check, but I will double check on that. But it was there's a lack of clarity on that. So it's something that multiple of the council members are interested in making sure that we prepare that station for the future. So yeah, that'll be discussed.
Does that
I
start
think when we discussed it last month, they weren't quite sure of the additional cost to do, you know, the whole thing for inside. I think they allowed like four stations inside and 4 stations outside, but we asked them to do more.
Yeah, I know we discussed the stations, but actually what the council discussed was putting in the electrical infrastructure and the conduit so that every single car in the garage could be electric. So like when the squad cars are, theoretically, we have squads that are electric, we could charge them all.
Yeah, we discussed that. They just didn't have the cost for it. Yeah.
So they finally have a cost. So hopefully we can, you know, that's a good question though. I can clarify if that's part of the sustainability package or if it's something that's separate. But I think it's in the range of like 100,000, 200,000, which I know is a lot of money, but in the grand scheme of things, I think it will save the city lots of money down the line.
Yeah, I think that's about what they estimated when we had that conversation.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, it's not in the minutes, so we can't refer to it.
Yeah.
Capri, is that 7:30 tomorrow?
It is at 7:30. That is not the first item on the agenda, and there's a couple that take some time. So if you want to tune in, I don't expect we'll get to it till 8, but obviously you never know for sure.
Okay. Thank you.
I think we're going to look at 2 to 3 hours of testimony if I had to guess. So
okay,
that's my read. We'll see. I've gotten a lot of emails, so
yeah.
people have heard about it, which is great, and I'm happy that people have gotten the message and are weighing in. So it should be an interesting meeting. If you want to tune in, and that's all.
Great. All right, just right on schedule then. Doing a good job, Andrew.
Ahead of schedule.
All right, let's move on to item 7 on the agenda, staff and commissioner updates, solid waste, Ben.
Yeah, so not a whole lot necessarily that we haven't already talked about here, but kind of just working on that and general best practices for waste hauler procurement. EPA has a lot of good documents and recommendations on writing RFPs and that kind of stuff. So a little bit of research into that. From stormwater, just some project updates. This citywide TMDL wind slam modeling is continuing. So we've got staff working on those models and again working with AECom on that as well. The Fitchburg Road Goose Lake stormwater project is moving forward. So we did receive some proposals from consultants for some engineering, design, and permitting for a project very similar in scope to what was recommended out of the feasibility study that AE2S completed in 2021. I will just mention that there is this ongoing Badger Mill Creek stakeholder group that is meeting monthly related to MMSD's decision to eliminate their discharge into Badger Mill Creek. So want to see if there's some way that this project could be modified or changed in some way to maybe supplement some of that lost flow into Badger Mill Creek. So, this project is, kind of at an interesting moment where we want to get some feedback from those in this Badger Mill Creek stakeholder group. And MMSD does have $1 million available for studies, monitoring, projects, what have you, that could enhance Badger Mill Creek. So we're looking to see if there's any way that this project could be modified to kind of help with the health and resiliency of the creek. So that's something that we'll be talking through with consultants, and then eventually we'll select a consultant later this month here. Keep working on that project. Crescent Road Stormwater Project. This is again on Crescent Road where there's been flooding in the past. We just got some 30% design documents back from the consultant on this one, working through just general kind of utility relocations, permitting. There will be a wetland permit involved in this. There'll be a pretty minor couple hundred square feet of disturbance to likely wetlands, just for installation of a riprap pad where this water is going to be sent to. The water's not going anywhere new. We're not adding any more water, but the water might get to this location faster. So we wanted to implement some controls so the water's not just flying by there and causing a bunch of erosion. But in order to do that, we're probably looking at a wetland permit, but still hoping to get that project constructed this year. I guess some more permitting updates for the Area H regional pond. It's also been called the Sod Farm Pond or Sod Father Pond, regional wet pond up by West Clayton Road. So we've been working through permitting with the Army Corps and the DNR. Just received Army Corps permits back for that. Looking to get the remaining DNR permits secured. Hopefully in the next month or so, and then get that project out to bid.
What's that again, Ben? I'm sorry.
This is just south of West Clayton Road.
Clayton Road.
I can bring it up here on the map quick. Share my screen quick. So this parcel here that I'm kind of outlining with my cursor, city owns this parcel and they're looking to put a wet pond in this location, which would serve to treat stormwater runoff from development in this area. This is a pretty old map, a pretty old image. Let's see if we can find something a little better. Slightly better. But yeah, this area here that's currently undeveloped, water would be conveyed to a pond at this location, which allows these parcels to basically take credit for the peak rate stormwater quality improvements that this pond would do. So they'd basically be allowed to build higher density, since they wouldn't have to have as much land for stormwater management. They'll still have to meet infiltration on each individual parcel, but the primary treatment would occur at this proposed pond location. This project has been in the works for like 2 decades. So the city bought this land quite a while ago, and there's a bunch of engineering studies dating back to like 2002, about design and construction of a pond here. And it's finally moving forward.
Ben, did the city get help from the DNR on Yarmouth Creek? You were taking
So oh yeah, that's a good update. So we did present a proposed project to the Yahara Winds group. That's the Watershed Adaptive Management Group. They do a bunch of mostly agricultural based projects with the intent to reduce phosphorus runoff into the creek. We're working on drafting more of a formal letter to follow up our presentation to Yahara Winds to request funding. They've already set their budget for 24. So I don't think it would be a project that occurs this year, but that is a project I'd like to maybe get into the CIP just to get it on, I guess, people's radar, and then hopefully we'll find some funding either from Yahara Winds, or there's actually a lot of DNR grants that this project could potentially be eligible for. I'm thinking specifically there's a targeted runoff management grant that this project could potentially be eligible for. So we're looking at some different funding sources and trying to keep that one moving as well.
And what about that the thing that we were waiting for Oregon to do something that I can never remember the name.
Lake Barney.
Yes.
That's honestly, that one's been off my radar for the last several months. But I'll
just in a holding pattern.
Yeah, I know that the village hasn't made the necessary improvements on their end yet. But I'll have to check back in with their staff and see if there's any movement on their side. I know they were getting a lot of opposition to digging a conveyance channel through the Lerner Conservation Park through there. I think that kind of stopped progress for a little while. So yeah, I don't have a great update for you on that one.
Are you getting any calls from homeowners?
No, the level of the lake is significantly lower than it was in the past. So I think part of it is kind of out of sight, out of mind. It's fallen off of people's radar since there's not kind of the imminent threat that had been posed in 2018, where you did have, I guess, one house in particular that was probably at risk.
Mm-hmm. I would point out, you're right, it is really at low elevations for the last couple of years. But along with that, my wife and I go out there a lot to bird watch, and the bird population, particularly the shorebirds, has gone dramatically down. So with the lake levels going down, we've lost a lot of shoreline habitat that would have been there for shorebirds. And so there's always a two-edged sword.
Yeah, and it's an interesting area. It's basically just a piece of depressed land where there's not really a natural outlet, so the water level is really totally dependent on rainfall and groundwater recharge. Evidently, that area infiltrates water pretty well when there's not any kind of like groundwater monitoring mounding preventing it to. Because it's fluctuated considerably, very similar to the large, I guess I'll call it a pond, south of Sub-Zero Parkway, where they completed that wetland scrape. I mean, that water level was pretty high in 2018, just due to the years of heavy rainfall. And now when you look at it, it's, there's probably 6 inches of water out there.
Yeah.
Thanks, Ben.
Some other updates. We did complete an update of the city's standard specification for development projects and just city projects in general. So real minor stuff. We changed some erosion control products that we're requiring just changes in manufacture to I think it was specifically the erosion control mat, the stuff that they lay down that's got the mulch in it after they seed, to prevent, the seed from washing out and just to give that bare soil protection. So we changed some products there. Other things, we had been sending out letters, some educational material, not just for Salt Awareness Week, but in particular Salt Awareness Week, but we have been doing that over the last couple of months. And then finally, we've got the city has their MS4 annual report due coming up in March here. So starting to kind of compile some documents and get that in good shape. Yeah, and those are kind of the primary updates.
Ben, is there any update on the Edgewood Sports Center that was supposed to go with Seminole and Lacey?
I have not heard any movement on that one. I don't have an update for you there.
Okay, thank you.
Not seen anything.
Okay. Okay, sustainability, Phil?
Yep. So put a pretty good amount of detail in the staff update document, so I'll try to go through them pretty quickly. We hosted the DNR Green Tier Legacy Communities all-member meeting at the end of January. Did a tour of the East Fire Station, looked at Fitchburg's energy efficiency and renewables progress and what our goals are going forward. And then hosted a couple dozen members in the library for discussion on several items that was really well received. Working on a memo to fund the replacement of those 4 solar inverters that are still non-functional. We do have one quote from Arch Electric that works with us right now, so I just need to get that memo together to Misty and figure out, things like, do we have to get competing memos, competing estimates, and then where would the budget money be coming from? This was not anticipated last summer when we put the operational budget together for this year. So hopefully we'll have our full solar hooray working again by sometime this spring. We'll just have to figure out what the timing is going to look like. Starting to get some data in for the energy benchmarking and renewables report. I remember from last year. It seems like kind of a new thing, but maybe I'm just misremembering that we don't get our renewables numbers from our utilities and what their grid looks like until May or June. So I won't be able to have a completed annual energy report for Fitchburg until at least then. But at least preliminary numbers with the solar installation down a little bit because of those inverters that were out, and with Fitchburg growing thanks to part of the town of Madison that joined us. We had a little bit higher energy use, a little bit lower renewables, so we're still hovering around 40%, but it looks like we didn't increase in our renewable percentage last year. Some understandable mitigating circumstances, and we'll know the specific numbers a little bit later. And then we're having our third planning team meeting for the sustainability plan tomorrow evening. We had a public information meeting on January 30th. Ron was there, a handful of other community members, and then that video is available on the city's website as well if you search for sustainability plan or go to the Green Fitchburg website. I know some folks have viewed that information on there. Also, I presented to the Housing Advisory Committee today with some of that information, and Joyce with Economic Development is going to be sharing it with CETA later next week as well.
Yeah, I was really disappointed. Like 8 people showed up for that meeting. That was
it was pretty limited. Yeah, it was unfortunate. Tried advertising in a number of places. I'm sure there are others I could have hit. Lessons learned for. We'll have more public meetings. I met with somebody from Dane County Extension last week to talk about communications and particularly equity outreach, and we'll do the same with essentially the equity staffer for the DNR. In the next week, we'll chat about different opportunities there. The biggest bummer is just that the survey that we're getting responses on, we're over 550 responses. The numbers are great. It's not demographically representative, and I don't love that, but that's certainly not the last opportunity for people to weigh in. So I'm going to still look at other opportunities to make sure that I'm getting feedback that represents the whole Fitchburg community. And right now it's a little bit closer to your sort of who you'd expect. We're not getting as much of the business community, the farm community, or renters and lower income and non-white Fitchburgers. So just still looking for ways to make sure that everyone's being represented in this.
Thank you. Any comments or anything on the staff and commissioner updates? If not, item 5D, activities being conducted or monitored by the commissioners. Anything that you would like to bring up? But we did have on here the update on electric vehicle event, and Chris has already identified that's going to be moved into June. So have you have a date set for that in June? Or did we?
We do not have a date set quite yet on that, but
Okay.
we're going to target something between we try to use, for what it's worth. I don't even know if, we can really count on an ad out of the Fitchburg Star, but, maybe it can be mentioned in an article or nearby. But we've always targeted like sometime after the 10th of the month and generally before the 20th. That's just been, kind of how we've focused, our events. That's worked out pretty well, month end, and, especially this time, that time of year is, 4th of July, and then, month end is like Memorial Day. So, the 10th to the 20th seems like a pretty safe spot for our events, and that's where we typically target.
Maybe we have money. Maybe we can start buying ads in the Star to get this out.
Yeah.
And we can put it on, we should make a point of getting it on the Star's printed calendar.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So, I did have an interesting conversation with Dave Benferrato. So he's on the Sustain Dane board, and he's the organizer of these EV 101 events. He's been part of every event that we've had in Fitchburg in the past. And, he had kind of mentioned the idea. He's like, what do you think about doing like a green expo event at a park and, having the EVs there? And I said, we have done some, green expos in the past. So this was like 2009, 2010. We did a couple of green expo events. So it was like right when we kicked off our community outreach subcommittee, we had these events at Promega, and we would have about 1.5, 2 hours of vendors, from around the area, different green vendors, which was really neat. There was a lot of good discussion that happened at that. And then we had a really good hour program after that. I think the takeaway from those events is it was a long period of time. So some of those events were taking, 3.5 hours. I'm not opposed to exploring that again. But with, kind of how the calendar's lining up with us having our annual event on pollinators in May, having, this event in June, and then July wanting to do our bring your own bag event. We're going to have a pretty heavy workload, not to mention what happens in April. So I don't think pulling off an expo is maybe in the cards for this year, but it's something to maybe consider for future years.
Chris, do you have a date for the pollinator event?
No, we need to set that. So look for some announcement between now and the next meeting for us to get that set.
Yeah, I can include that in my No May article.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And that's going to be in April?
Yes.
Okay.
Chris, on that EV event, is that going to be back at the library again, or can it be held outdoors somewhere? Like at McKee Farms Park, like we had the bikes last year?
Yeah, with it being in June, that could be a possibility because we could, potentially. Oh, yeah. The nice thing about the library is we have a space where we can, sit down and talk as a group for like a half hour, and we talk about like charging situations, other kind of things to know for, it's an opportunity for us as a group to talk about different things related to electric vehicles as a group before we're kind of going on the majority of the event, which is spending an hour going and looking at EV vehicles and people having a chance to sit inside them and ask questions from the owners. So he's like, in terms of venues for the EV 101 event, there's nothing more ideal than what we've done out in Fitchburg. The 2 times I think we've had it in the past, because of this. But I do like the opportunity of moving it around, so we can definitely look at that idea.
I mean, just think about Key Farm Park. Last year we had the bicycle event there. It gives people a place to sit down at the picnic tables there under that shelter instead of having to stand. And then they could get up and walk around and look at the different vehicles and things like that. So instead of having to stand all the time. Because I don't think there'll be any sitting chairs and things like that in the garage, right?
No, I mean, we have that up in our normal meeting space. So we have that for like a half hour.
So you go upstairs, okay.
We go upstairs, we have that for a half hour, and then we come down. And so, we could do that at McKee. The only drawback is that, like if we were to have it at the library, we always have a backup plan with being able to go into the garage underneath if it's raining out. We wouldn't have to cancel the event or postpone it. Excuse me.
Good point. Yep. Good point. How many car vendors have you are going to be coming? Do you know? Or
they have a list of EV owners, and they've had a good turnout, and there's been a good variety of cars. When we've done this in the past, so we've had, typically 10 to 12 different cars at each of the events we've had in Fitchburg so far, and I think Dave can push and try to get some other people, in the mix. I don't know how they, track their list of EV owners, and invite them to events, exactly. But, we can definitely figure out a little bit more information on how that is and, try to get a good variety of vehicles there.
okay. Yeah, we just purchased one, so we would be willing to bring ours over. So
Perfect.
did you have a question, Gabriella?
No, I was just wondering if we could move that to an agenda item for a future meeting and wrap it up. I'm going to be in a meeting for like 6 hours, so I'm kind of eager to go to sleep.
Fair enough.
All right.
I appreciate it. Yeah.
Anything else? If not, it's 8:43. We can adjourn the RCC meeting.
Nice job, Andrew.
Yep. Thank
Excellent,
you.
Andrew.
Yep.
I think that's a record for us to get done.
Yeah, I know.
We're
Yeah.
8:45.